the one key in our training is about intuitive medicine. This is something that modern Western medicine do not emphasize, do not have a formal training in the medical school. But in the future of medicine, this is going to be a huge thing. And so Debrah happened to be the author of 2 books, a very relevant topic. So Debrah, can you tell us more about how do you come up to write these 2 books, and what are you going to teach in the academy?
Right. So the reason I initially wrote this book was that I come from an extremely traditional family, and I grew up in the Northeast. So it was all about going to college and, how to make your way in the world. I had a really intense psychic experience and spiritual awakening when I was just getting out of college that kind of rattled everything to pieces. And instead of continuing on to get a Ph.D. in psychology, which is what I was planning on doing, I ended up going because I went to a psychic, and in the psychic reading, the guides who were coming through her, she worked with a Ouija board. And as she was giving me the reading, the guides basically said, you are one of us, and this is what you're here to do, and we are going to train you. And it was such an incredible experience for me. They talked about one of my past lives and why it was relevant. And I had just started therapy, and in the past life, apparently I had lost all my children in Peru and wasn't able to mourn them. And in therapy, one of the initial reasons I went in there was I was having trouble feeling sadness, and it's like all the lives seemed interconnected, and it made sense to me, and it gave me a completely different perspective. And because of my traditional background, it also really challenged the way I was grown up to think. And so this book addresses people that are having a spiritual awakening of some kind, but maybe sort of terrified or frightened because it challenges the belief system that you grew up with. And you kind of deny it and say, oh, well, that couldn't have really happened. When in fact, the energies are all about us ascending at this time. And so a lot of people that have been sort of just living are beginning to have these really incredible experiences. And so I'm here to help guide people to understand that it's okay. And in writing Embrace Your Spirit Guides, it's also to understand that each of us comes with a huge team of guides, like when we're born, and they are not ever going to interfere in our lives. But what they do is they respond when we ask for help. And so each of us has a guardian angel, and each of us has a whole team or collective energy that's here to support us on the other side. And learning how to access that really is a powerful thing, and reminds us that we're not alone, and that we have a lot of support for moving through in our lives and achieving our dreams and getting some clarity about why we're here. And so it's a pretty powerful time. And my understanding is that a lot of people with my kind of background, and maybe physicians, since a lot of the Jedi Academy is structured towards helping physicians, it may challenge your initial belief system that these things aren't real and it's not happening, and these things aren't affecting us in any kind of serious way, that it's just all sort of woo-woo and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. When in fact, once we start to go to the core belief systems, that's how we change what's happening physically in the body, and we begin to create healing and help people, move forward when, they may have some serious health conditions, and just treating the symptoms in the old East, Western way of medicine isn't sufficient enough. There's access to a whole lot more information.
Yeah, this is really great. And and she is not alone. And she came from the family was all physicians, right? And this is no joke, you know. And I also have almost all our faculties are very intuitive, into the intuitive medicine, and they all coming from the medical background. And they all trained through the Western medicine system, but they also like what your books is about, like really embracing their psychic gift.
So I had a pretty extraordinary experience, and it happens that one of my particular methods is psychic intuition. But everyone has ability to have that special intuitive power. The way some of us are more visual, some of us are more auditory, some of us are more kinesthetic. The same can be said about psychic intuition. You may experience it different than someone else, but everybody has the ability to tune into their special way of hearing and seeing the more subtle frequencies. And it's an exciting process to watch somebody discover, you know, how they see the world in that way. And the more you interact, the more powerful and easier it is to make that connection. And so everyone has that ability to connect. And that's why it's exciting to include it in your program, because, you know, there's nothing more exciting than to imagine a physician, you know, working with you that has a broader context for what's happening on the physical body. So I just had to interject that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I have a question. How do you get started, and what's the easiest place to start getting in touch with your psychic gifts?
That's a great question. And I think the beginning place is to start to acknowledge areas in your life where you see synchronicity, and whether it's understanding who's on the phone, or the fact that you can feel thoughts about another person and then you run into them, or you're wanting something to happen and then it comes in just the way you want it to. And so starting to acknowledge those special moments, the more you acknowledge it, the more it grows. It's sort of like how you plant a seed in the garden. Every time you water it, the plant grows. And so just beginning to understand that there is a subtle level of frequency is a really great way to get started. But I can't overemphasize enough the power of meditation. And we all know that it's good for your, you know, your parasympathetic nervous system, and that it helps align you in different ways. But the other side of doing a meditation is that it raises your frequency. And as you're on a higher vibration, you're more sensitive to these energies. And that's really a great way to get started. So if you don't have a meditation practice, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, creating that space sort of at the same time each day begins to create an opening so that you can start to build on that. So that's where I would get started.
Yeah, we will have a lot of training and practice in our program. Really increasing your frequency is very, you know, essential to really embracing that gift in you, and use it in your medical practice or your own, you know, life